Hi, I'm Jeremy Sinemaki with Veterans Florida. I'm the Veterans Employment and Training Services Director. And we're here today to talk about franchising, including buying a franchise or selling a franchise. So we have some great guests here today, and I'll let them take a few minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll go into why you may want to buy or look at franchising. So Bobby Carbonell, would you please start?
Hi, everybody. I'm Bobby Carbonell. I'm an Army and Air Force veteran, and I'm the owner of Growler Country. We're a craft beer focused restaurant and bar, and we are a new franchisor offering franchises of our craft beer bar. We've been around for 7 years, and we've won national, state, and local awards for our quality, and we think we have a great system to pass on to other veterans.
Great. Paul? You're muted, Paul. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. I'm muted. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Huzar. I'm the CEO of VetCore and Team VetCore. VetCore is a restoration company that helps solve water and mold-related challenges and provides other services in commercial and residential properties. But the thing that makes us different and unique is that we do it by primarily deploying former members, veterans of the U.S. military. Our policy is we hire veterans and those who share similar values. And Team VetCore is a holding company for a series of 6 companies that enable the franchising of that opportunity to primarily veterans and their family members, but also those who share similar values to create now business ownership opportunities. Our mission is to create sustainable, meaningful employment opportunities for our nation's heroes and now business ownership opportunities through franchising. I also happen to be a retired Army officer, 23 years in the military, was an Army engineer, commanded a battalion in Iraq in 09-10, 4 combat tours. And so I felt the pain of transitioning, being a transitioning veteran myself, and through this crazy series of networking events, had this opportunity to first start VetCore, then I had the opportunity to own it, and then we decided to franchise it. So glad to be here. Thanks for hosting this Veterans Florida and all you do for veterans in the state of Florida.
Thank you. Jenny.
Hi everyone. I'm Jenny Sutter. I'm the owner of FriendNet in the greater Tampa Bay area. FriendNet is a franchise consulting group, international franchise consulting group with owners just like me across the country. And what we do is help people who are looking to be business owners identify the right franchise for them. I do work with a lot of veterans, transitioning veterans, in order to help them identify the right type of franchise that would make sense. Everyone thinks of a franchise and they think of fast food, but there's a lot of other different options out there, including Growler Country and VetCorp. So there's a lot of different options out there. I help them dig into their skill sets, dig into their goals in order to identify the right franchise for them. So thanks for having me so much.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. Matt?
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm Matt Wiggins. I'm the Associate Manager of Veterans Programs for the International Franchise Association. I work on the VetFran program, which is a nonprofit initiative of the International Franchise Association Foundation. We work to help veterans find their next franchise opportunity by working with IFA's franchise members to help them publicize the discounts that they give to veterans on the purchase of a franchise, as well as creating educational materials, helping people find their next franchise through a series of matchmaking. We're all about helping vets find the next step and feel confident in doing it. So we work very closely with over 500 companies to ensure that they are being responsible and giving their discounts to military veterans and helping them make that connection. So glad to be here so that we can, chat more about helping folks find their next step.
Great. So I'll go into the first question, and it'll be for Bobby. You spend a lot of time creating Growler Country and bringing that into the vision that you saw. What made you interested in turning that into a franchise and getting into franchising?
Thanks, Jeremy. We we did. We spent a lot of time building good systems so we could have repeatable business that was easy to run, profitable, and get a good customer experience every single time. And so, just a few years into working at Growler Country, our customers came in and said, "Hey, is this a franchise? Can we buy one of these? We'd love to start one. This would be great in one of my towns." If they were visiting from out of town, or I have an aunt or an uncle who lives in a different state who wants to open one. And so we started looking into it, and then we realized that there was a huge need in that space. There's a lot of restaurant franchises. There's not a lot of places that do exactly what we do, or we're really focused on providing a quality, craft beer experience with lots of choices, highly curated with like expert, bartenders who can help you find what you want. And so we said, let's see what we can do. And we started doing that. We've had really great interest in the franchise. And so we want to help other people own their own business and make them successful. We're something we're passionate about, and something I've always been passionate about is helping people. And so it's a way for us to help people, to grow our brand, and to get more customers drinking good beer.
Well, that's always important, drinking good beer. So, Paul, how about you? What made you want to take VetCor into the franchise arena?
So for me, it's been about mission and in our team. So our mission, creating sustainable, meaningful employment opportunities. And as I transitioned and learned how to be a CEO and a businessman, I realized, even if we're wildly successful, and we have been, we've won numerous awards and we've grown very rapidly. We've had some natural disasters where we excelled that allowed us to earn a lot of revenue and really show our worth. Even if we grow very rapidly, probably the best we could do through debt financing, because I didn't want to offer up private equity or try to become a publicly traded company or something, which requires a board of directors and frankly slows that company down, makes it more bureaucratic. So the best we could do is, maybe a new office once every 6 months. And we did that. We expanded to 2 additional offices in the first 2 years in business. But that wasn't achieving the scale and scope that I wanted to help fellow veterans. I also realized that when we were doing that, when we were adding a new office, that typically meant that we had an opportunity for, like a senior NCO kind of was running that office, retired former senior NCO, and a bunch of mostly junior enlisted guys who are the technicians. And I said, well, what about folks like me, senior NCOs, officers, who are transitioning out? Most of the people are just like me. When I talk to them and try to help them, they didn't know what they want to do when they grew up. So I studied the franchise model and said, wow, this is a way to grow and expand faster for all of the system. It's also a way to create opportunities for senior people transitioning who don't know necessarily what they want to do, but almost all of them that I've talked to want to continue to help veterans because they run into the same challenges that I did in transition. So when we went to school and I went to 2 IFA conventions and enrolled in the Certified Franchise Executive program. I'm now a Certified Franchise Executive. Before we even started franchising, just to learn about the industry, I said, this is the model for us because it allows other veterans to become business owners, grow wealth, and achieve wealth that they really weren't interested in. Most of us were interested in service, and now it's kind of a way to catch up on the wealth building opportunities for their families. And what are they going to do? They're only going to hire more veterans on their own teams as well. So it's a way for us to achieve that growth. And then our vision is to become the premier private employer of veterans throughout the United States and become the brand known for timely, quality, reliable service and the value of veterans. And the franchising model just fits very nicely with helping us achieve the vision and mission of our company.
That's great. Yeah. One of the benefits, it sounds like, is that, you figure out all the pitfalls in advance, so that the service member might be interested in franchising or veteran doesn't have to experience all those same things.
I've got the scars to prove it. But the funny thing is, a lot of our experiences as military leaders translate well to civilian business leaders. We just don't know necessarily how they translate. And so I think we figured that out by a lot of lessons learned. And now, so we're passing on those lessons learned, passing along, like Bobby said, the SOPs. Veterans are very good at following SOPs, but they're also, and then there's a stigma attached to that, that people think that that's what we do. What we really do is follow SOPs and make them better. We follow commander's intent, not rote instructions, but commander's intent, understanding the purpose, key tasks, and end state. And then we find even better ways to achieve that end state. And then franchising, one of the key phrases is you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So the CEO of one of my franchisees, a company that owns VetCor of Pinellas County, is the CEO. They figure out who to hire and fire, but they can use our SOPs and our procedures to do that. So they're not like a subordinate unit like we would think of in the military, but they get help from the franchisor.
So it sounds like there's autonomy, but there's also a structured environment that this veteran would be walking into. So Jenny, if there's a service member or veteran that thinks that franchising might be a way to become an entrepreneur, what would they do to start looking into that and starting the process of finding out what's involved?
Yeah, I think it starts with a little bit of education of what a franchise is, what it's not, kind of expectations of, what you get with a franchise and what you don't. And so a little bit of education, walking them through those things, making sure they clearly understand it. With FranNet, we actually put them and do it's called a personal franchise assessment or an entrepreneur assessment, essentially, that really kind of hones in on skill sets, motives and values in business, work style, director style, leadership style. And, that kind of helps kind of create that baseline so that they, I can help them and they understand a little bit about, more about what makes them tick. That I'm able to help use me to kind of guide them in a direction of which types of franchises would make sense, along with understanding what are they looking for in the future and the short term and the long term, what types of businesses that they're attracted to, what types of businesses they want to avoid, what types of business facets that they want and things that they don't, such as how many employees are they comfortable managing. A lot of people haven't thought that through before they start a business, and it's a really important thing. Managing employees is can be kind of frustrating at times, and some people just flat out don't want to do it. But you have to think of yourself as the business owner. A lot of folks come into owning a business thinking, oh, I love what the business does, I love the outcome of the business, but you really have to put your shoes in what are you as the business owner. So helping them kind of educate them on what that looks like, and then what options are out there that could potentially meet those goals.
So this question really, Jenny, is for you and Matt. You assist the veteran with that process and finding out what types of goals they have and those types of things, right? Could you kind of expand on some of the services you offer to veterans interested in franchising?
Well, for me, I really do, like I said, I sit down and really, we go through, a 2-hour plus session of just education and digging in, peeling back the onion of the things that, make sense for them and their goals. From there, I then help, come up with some options that might make sense for them. Somebody who might be interested in Growler Country, might not be interested in VetCorp, and vice versa, because they have different facets to the business, require a different amount of employees with different types of skill sets, perhaps. So I help them, come up with options that might make sense. From there, I help them with the research process, introduce them to the different franchise organizations, help them with, what kinds of questions they should ask, making sure that they're getting the questions answered, being a sounding board through the entire process, and providing them with resources along the way, whether it's, a local CPA perhaps, or franchise lawyer, whatever it might be, but really holding their hand through the entire process in order to really identify if indeed it does make sense for them, or if it's, maybe that's not a great option for them too.
Yeah, I'd say both of those are a win. If you find out it's good or if you find out it's not for you.
Exactly.
So Matt, are there any services that you offer that might be different? I know you also have some discounts on opportunities once they find a franchise that they're interested in. You want to expand on that?
Yeah, we're really about connections and education. So we maintain the VetFriend directory, which is a full listing of all of our members. It's got information about their industry and what kind of programs they offer as far as discounts. It also tells you more about their business and what they do. You can search that directory by industry, by investment range, whether or not you're looking for home-based franchise opportunities. So we want to kind of give the veteran the ability to index our list based on what they're looking for. So we start that process there. And then we have a whole number of both educational resources that we've created, as well as ones that we've found and think are useful that we share along with veterans. So the whole point of VetFriend is really to find a franchise that that veterans are willing to work with and would be interested in franchising with, learn more about it, make sure that the investment range is something that they're comfortable with. We also do work to connect them with both government and private resources if they're looking for funding or if they're looking for business coaching. We've got a lot of partners both in both the private and public arenas. So we try and connect them to wherever makes the most sense to make sure that folks feel comfortable in making that business decision. So that's really why VetFriend is there, to both aggregate opportunities and provide education.
Well, that's a great service. It means as a veteran, you don't have to go into it blind. And I'm sure a lot of people come to you and they think they want one thing, but they don't really understand all that's involved. And you guys do a good job of educating them. So I want to move on to the next question. Bobby, I'm going to ask this of you first. I know you all have probably experienced challenges, but can you just highlight some challenges you faced with creating your franchise, and then how purchasing a franchise might prevent you from having to face some of the same challenges?
Oh yeah, I think like Paul said, we definitely have the battle scars to show, like, jumping in and not knowing the industry, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So we went through, multiple, versions of like equipment and point of sale systems and vendors, and figure out which one works, how to build the right system to, like, make sure you have your inventory right and your cost right. So, those are the kind of things that could take a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money. And sometimes those mistakes can prove fatal to small businesses. So, getting off the ground with a franchise helps you understand, like, what's the proven model. People have been in business for, many years, past the point where most businesses fail, where they've won, awards, they've been profitable. And that helps, get that person off the ground and running without spending a lot of time experimenting on the wrong things and focusing on what's going to make them successful. And that's what we've done, is packaged up all of those lessons learned. So when you join the Growler Country family, you get the value of those battle scars without having to take on that pain yourself. And you get to learn from the people who've made the mistakes, figured out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice being able to learn from those people that have already gone through the process and are willing to share it. So, Paul, do you have anything you'd like to add to that on challenges and benefits of possibly buying a franchise?
Sure. I mean, I tell folks that, first of all, I've been the CEO of VetCor now for almost 8 years. Been retired. It's hard to believe. And I do a lot of work with veteran business owners, veteran franchises, veteran entrepreneurs, and those three categories are not the same. An entrepreneur, a business owner, and a franchisee, they're not synonymous with one another. But when I talk to them, I say, really, I think the two hardest things that I've learned about starting a business is getting the business, the marketing, sales, et cetera. Finding the market. Where are those people, or are the people that want your widget or your service? And then financing the business, financing the growth of the business, particularly if you're successful, because successful means you need more money. And, so oftentimes people are bootstrapping their business. So success can actually allow you to outrun your cash flow that you have. And so unfortunately, both of those two things, the financial aspect of it and the marketing and sales aspect of it are things that typically a veteran transitioning knows nothing about. We're good at the manning, training, equipping, leading, managing, and we're outstanding at that. But the two hardest things that are in business, we're not very good at. And so getting into a franchise actually mitigates both of those, because the franchisor has already built the brand. So in our case, we tell people, you just have to tell the story, and we have a good story to tell with VetCor about how we're helping fellow veterans and also how we're helping people in their time of need. And so you really don't have to sell. You have to tell stories. And then when you tell stories, you're worried about relationships, right? You're concerned about relationships. You're not concerned about transactions. And then those relationships turn into transactions, which allows the marketing, the sales to actually materialize and turn into revenue. So you make money, because you have to make money. The same thing is true with financing the piece. We connect them with organizations that we've already pre-vetted. We're a SBA authorized franchisor, so it makes it easier for them to get an SBA loan with one of our pre-approved vendors. There's also ways to get leases of vehicles. We have an arrangement with Enterprise Fleet Management, also a very large, albeit veteran-owned company named after the USS Enterprise. So we serve as the master lessor for vehicles. They typically wouldn't be able to secure a lease with Enterprise, and now because they're entering an agreement with us, they get it at a fleet discount. So they get all those advantages from a franchisee-franchisor relationship that help mitigate those risks. And frankly, those are the same challenges that we have as a franchisor. Getting the business. We have to find the people who are interested in franchising. One of the assumptions we made, for example, VetFran is an awesome organization. They just recently changed their rules that you have to be a franchisor for now 3 years. When we started, it was 1 year. So we thought we were going to be able to enter VetFran, participate in them, and we would also be able to get leads through them. That didn't happen. We're a member of FranNet now. We just about a month ago started with them, and Jenny and her team. And so they've helped us mitigate some of those challenges, because we had 27 speed meetings, 10 minutes each, with people like Jenny across the United States who are helping veterans and anybody interested in franchising. And so now they've helped us find the market, those transitioning veterans. And COVID hasn't helped over the past year either, because we haven't been able to do those in-person events. So the same types of challenges that regular businesses have, we have with getting our offering of VetCor Opportunity to the market.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Paul. I'm sure a big challenge for many veterans and service members is coming up with capital. But I think there might be a misconception with franchising. And Jenny, I'm going to go to you on this one, because I know you have some examples. But do I need hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank to get a franchise?
Depends on the franchise. Every franchise, they come in all shapes, sizes, colors, and what you're, how much money you're going to need, perhaps. But every franchise has generally a minimum net worth requirement and a minimum liquidity requirement. And those are really important, because the franchise does not want their franchisees to fail. And so those requirements are built in order to help fail safe, so that they're well funded. They're again, depends on the franchise. You don't necessarily have to have hundreds of thousands in the bank liquid because there is funding options available. Working with Matt on what kinds of funding options are available, as well as, I provide funding options where they can, different resources to get SBA loans or to use other resources to get funding. So it's important, I was going to say that before, one of the pitfalls, right, is that people don't understand how to fund their business or what options they have out there. And so that's one of the first things that I have my clients do is introducing them to somebody that can help them with their funding and understanding what the landscape of funding looks like out there, because it's changed over time too. It takes a little bit longer for SBA loans. Also, they've changed their rules too. So you really have to understand, how are you going to fund the business regardless of how many hundreds of thousands or not hundreds of thousands of dollars you need in the bank. You need to understand what funding looks like for you.
Right. So, Matt, are there other programs to help get funding towards franchises and for veterans and service members that you guys assist with at VetFran?
There's a lot of funding out there. As Jenny was talking about, there are a lot of SBA resources through SBA loans. There are a lot of options if you are interested in acquiring a loan through a credit union or bank as well. If that's something that you can qualify for, you can go through them for an SBA loan. We've actually partnered with Bank of America in the past. They have set up a program for people who are looking to franchise through VetFran to reduce some of the loan origination fees and things like that to make it easier to attain one of those loans. We've worked with Navy Federal Credit Union in the past, as well as PenFed. So there's lots of options. If you want to go the SBA route, you certainly have a lot of opportunity there. And there are SBA resources that are dedicated to helping get veterans set up with those loans. The Veteran Business Outreach Centers are run by the SBA and located throughout the country. There's the Small Business Development Centers, SBDC. In addition to working at VetFran, I am also a member of the Federal Advisory Committee on Veteran Business Affairs at the SBA. And so I have this window into being able to see just how many federal resources there are available to veterans who are looking to get started. They are numerous, and now that the economy is ready to come back from COVID and we're ready to start, really ratcheting things up again, there's a lot of funding, and now's the right time. This administration is also very focused on working with veterans and underserved groups. You can see that in, for example, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund at the SBA has just opened up, and there's a 3-week period at the very beginning reserved for certain groups, and veterans are one of them. So now's the right time if you're thinking about it, because there's a lot of funding available, and also veterans are definitely viewed as a priority group. So getting involved, it's definitely the right time. So reach out to those government resources through VBOC, reach out to us, reach out to franchise consultants if you'd like. Everybody can help get you down the right path. You just need to, get started. And as Jenny said, franchises come in a number of different investment levels as well. I have an interview on the VetFran website where we talked about higher investment franchises, and I interviewed the chief development officer at Marriott, and he was talking about hotels, which are one of the highest investment franchises that you can find, $5, $10, $15 million just to get started. And the concept of the video was something that he calls OPM, or other people's money. So it was all about getting started while also leveraging friends and investors and business partners to help you achieve a higher value franchise. So just because something seems out of your investment range doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be. Just might mean that you need to think creatively and find alternate funding sources.
Hey, Jeremy, let me chime in just to kind of break it down as a little bit more practical for a typical veteran. So how you know how much money you need is talking to someone like Matt or Jenny who can help guide you, but also definitely where that is located is in the franchise disclosure document, FDD. So the franchisor has to give you, it's typically a range. For VetCor, I'll use that as an example. We're around $150,000 required for initial investment. That's on the low end for a franchise. But that doesn't mean that the franchisee, the potential franchisee, needs $150,000. That just means that's the capital required to get the franchise started. To break that down a little bit even further is, so if you want to get an SBA loan for that entire $150,000, and typically what we also say is that includes about 3 months of operating capital to give you enough runway to start making money, so that you're paying yourself. If you calculate that in there, you're paying for your employees, you're paying for your rent, et cetera, like that. So you don't have to rely on, even when you turn the lights on, you starting your business, you don't receive money for that business. You have to calculate and consider the cash flow. Well, so if you want to get a loan for $150,000, typically from the SBA or a lender like that, you're going to have to show that you're going to have about 20% of that capital investment or injection yourself. So 20% of $150,000, you need about $30,000 to get a $150,000 requirement for a franchise to start that business. Now, the other thing is, though, you don't necessarily need that yourself. You can use OPM, other people's money. And one of the things that I'm really excited and interested about is we're working with a guy, John Pancioni. He's a friend of Veterans Florida and many people here. He started vet2ceo.org, some business training for veterans. And his company, Follow Capital, is now working on a crowdfunding option. So now that veteran doesn't even necessarily need $30,000. They could go, think like a GoFundMe on steroids, where his company would create the security, the document essentially that would allow people, either accredited investors or non-accredited investors, to contribute, crowdfund, to create that $30,000 that the veteran needed, or that total $150,000 that the veteran needed, at very competitive rates, similar to debt financing. So what I would say is, don't let any type of amount stop you from getting involved and getting interested, because if you need money, there's a way to get that money typically, and any of us here can generally help find a way to get that and make that work.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I know that's a question we get all the time. I don't mean to stay on that subject, but I would think too, with a franchise, the risk is generally reduced, so the banks are a little more lenient on what they lend, since you're using a proven model. And then the other thing I'm guessing would be to make sure that your credit stays in order while you're going through this process, your personal credit.
Yeah, and there's this myth that you can't get SBA lending. I heard this. I actually I used the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, and took some classes and tried to understand some of this when I was 6-7 years ago. And there was a myth that you couldn't get an SBA loan until you had 3 years time in business. That's actually a myth. The reality is you can get an SBA loan prior to that, and you have to use projections. And that's what everybody here is good at, is helping you make those projections, particularly in a franchise system, because they have historical projections, they have historical models, and they have a brand that's already in existence. So you can take those projections. Typically SBA wants 3 years of projections. And if it shows you're making money after 3 years with your projections, based on all your assumptions, your calculations, then typically you can get funded. After 3 years in business, you can't use projections, and they're going to need to see your financials. And so it's kind of a flip side. So you want to make sure, best time to get money is when you don't need it. And so you got to make sure you avoid some of those myths out there. But you don't necessarily have to have the financials and to get that SBA loan. In fact, they're there to help generate small business in the United States.
I think just to kind of tack on to what Paul was saying, we started our business with an SBA loan based off of projections. Just needed a small amount to kind of test it out and grow it. But what helps and where this can come in really strong for veterans and for military retirees is that if you have good credit, and typically if you're going to be a retiree, you're going to have a paycheck coming in. So you're going to have some ability to repay. You're not 100% reliant on that business. So if you have a spouse that's employed and you want to do it full time, you have a military retirement check or you have a VA, disability checks, you're not like you're going to be homeless and starving if the business takes a few months to get off the ground. All of those are going to be factors that are going to help that lender make that decision to help you get that loan to get started.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bobby. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So, in your journeys, I'll come back to you, Bobby, on that. What are some real highlights of your experience, or some great things about franchising that you'd like veterans to know?
I said, we really like the idea, like, it's been said here before, and it's been said many times before, that you own the business, but you're not completely alone. You have somebody to come back to and ask questions. You have somebody they can rely on and say, hey, this weird thing happened. I don't know how to deal with it. How have you guys dealt with it in the past? We're having an issue with one of our suppliers. Do you have some tips on how do we get through that? I wish we would have had that when we started. We had to do it all on our own. And again, you learn the hard way, and it costs a lot of money and it takes a lot of time. And so that's, to me, is the biggest benefit of it. It allows you to get up and running quickly with the right stuff that is, is going to work to bring in customers, bring in revenue, and make money. And I think that's the attractive part to a lot of folks. They want to start a business, but they don't necessarily want to go down this unlit path that's going to have a lot of obstacles in their way, and they want to figure out what's the fastest way to getting in business and making money and not having to experiment and make mistakes.
All right, Jenny, did you have anything to add to that? Any highlights on helping veterans find franchises that they're looking for, and any success stories you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I can echo Bobby and in the sense of, the thing with a franchise is that, and I think actually Paul said it earlier, so I'm just going to be a big repeat here, but you are in business for yourself, not by yourself. And that's important to understand because, so many people, it's new to so many people, right? And so that's okay. Lean on that franchisor to educate you on what it's going to look like to be that business owner. Most of my clients have never owned a business, and so it's all new. But do the research. Get to the point where you get that franchise disclosure document. Go through all the webinars that the franchisor is going to take you through, so that you really can educate yourself on that and make an informed decision. I would also say, we were talking about financing earlier. Do that early on. I very often do get folks who say, oh, I'll worry about that later. I want to find the franchise first, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to fund it. Don't do that. Go ahead and understand what your funding options are as almost number one, so that you know how much you can, put into the business. It's kind of like buying a house or buying a car. You need to understand what your budget is in order to do that. You need to feel comfortable that you can support your lifestyle regardless of the investment of the business. So funding is I would say, number one pitfalls that people, kind of don't want to do at first. Just understand your funding options is probably the biggest thing. And then understanding what makes that business tick, and is that something that you want to do as the business owner?
Yeah, I agree. That's great to get started early on the challenges. That way, as you go, the biggest challenges are already over. Matt, you work with a lot of veterans in your arena. Do you have any highlights or any particular things that you see with veterans getting franchises that make them good fits for franchises, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been around. VetFran is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and we've seen thousands of veterans go on to become franchisees as their next step. And we've always seen a great connection between, veterans and franchising. And I think that the reason our program exists is because companies also notice that. Our data has consistently shown in the past that veterans are not just more likely to be more successful franchisees, they're also more likely to go on to open more units or to be more successful overall, hire more veterans in their system. It's a smart business decision for franchise companies to want more veterans in their system because they're overperforming compared to their non-veteran peers. That's part of the reason you'll see so many companies on our directory offering veterans discounts, because not only do they want to give back to veterans, but it is smart business. We have members who are offering 20, 50, even waiving the franchise fee fully in order to get veterans into their system. We rank our members on either 1, 3, or 5 stars, depending on numerous business qualifications, how long they've been in business, and how large the investment is, to try and make it easier to understand which company is which. But that's what I would say, is that it is very clear that it's smart business for veterans to be involved in franchising. Our data shows that they're likely to be more successful, and lots of companies are very, very willing to help folks get involved so that we can see those success stories that we have been for so long.
Great. So I'm going to get to my favorite question, and we'll end on that. And I'm going to ask this of all of you. I'll start with you, Paul. If you had to give some advice to a veteran or transitioning service member who's interested in franchising, either buying or selling a franchise, what would it be?
That's easy. Connect. Connect with me, connect with the folks on this panel, connect with the IFA, connect with VetFran. As I mentioned, before we started our journey as a franchisor, I got the same great advice. And it was from a franchise attorney. He said, hey, this is kind of what I want to do with VetCor. He said, you need to join the IFA and go to the IFA annual conference. And I said, well, great. When is it? And he said, it's in 2 weeks in Phoenix. I booked a flight and I went out there. I joined the IFA. I wasn't even a franchisor, franchisee, nothing. And I just started making connections. And through those connections, I started learning. And that's how I got connected with Vet. I walked into the VetFran meeting. It's an open meeting in the committee. I met, almost all of the members of the VetFran committee. They were all incredibly helpful. I met a lot of vendors that we currently use as vendors for franchisors. I met the FranNet team. I met Jenny's CEO at a franchise roundtable we did for transitioning service academy graduates in DC. We both sat on the panel. Met Bobby through Veterans when he was working at Veterans Florida. So connect, because it takes a network and it helps you, really learn what's required. It also helps you with great resources when it's time to phone a friend or to get connected with someone else, and give you a support network as well, so that you're able to make informed decisions. So franchising isn't right for everybody, but it's a pretty damn good industry. And I think it's really good for veterans, but you got to make sure, a good friend of mine, when I was a young first lieutenant and Company XO, and I was transitioning from Bravo 37th Engineer Battalion Combat Airborne, and that XO said to me, here's the keys, here's the reins. He said, just remember, before you pull any strings, you got to know all the ropes. And connecting is with people, it allows you to kind of understand the ropes and what's required. And I'm happy to do that, whether it's on social media, LinkedIn in particular. And we have on our YouTube channel, we do a bunch of VetCor or veteran franchising 101 webinars. We have a lot of resources, and our standing offer is we'll help any veteran connect. We'll help any veteran with opportunities, regardless if you're interested in a VetCor franchise or not, because it's inherent in our mission at VetCor as a company to help veterans.
Yeah, Paul, that's great advice. And I think it's true whether you're starting a franchise, buying a franchise, or looking for a job, or any other thing in life, is connecting is really key. And I can't stress the importance of that enough. Bobby, what advice would you give to a veteran or service member interested in franchising?
On top of the things that Paul said about networking, which are hugely important, go out and do some education on your own. Join as many, there's tons of veteran business organizations. There's tons of entrepreneurship support organizations. Kind of get yourself immersed in like the language and the vocabulary. So when you read that FDD document, that franchise disclosure document, and when you're comparing franchises, you understand what the differences are between like, gross margin, gross profit, what are the cost structures, all of those terminologies that, when you first joined the military, you had to learn, what all of these terminologies were for every service, and then otherwise you wouldn't last a day. So if you can get yourself familiar with that by learning, going to groups, talking to other business owners, leveraging the power of your network, it will help you make a better decision on whether a franchise is right for you, and then which franchise is right for you. And then obviously, said reach out and connect with anybody on this panel. Would be happy to help. I'd be happy to help. I talk to veterans probably a couple times a week on starting businesses, and sometimes they want to know about my business, and sometimes we just want to brainstorm ideas to make them successful. So
That's great. And I think it's a common theme that, everybody here was willing to help answer questions or connect with any veteran or service member that's looking for help. So Jenny, what piece of advice would you give to veterans or transitioning service members interested in franchising?
Yeah, I think I've said it before. It's about finding the right fit. Not every franchise is for every person. Not every person is for every franchise. And in order to do that, you really do have to connect with them. Very oftentimes, I have folks who I'm working with who just want to go and Google and research online what that franchise is all about. You're not going to find the information you need unless you are connected with them, speaking with them, going through their research process, getting the franchise disclosure document. You just can't learn what you need to know by researching online. So and in order to figure out, part of figuring out what the right fit is talking with that franchise organization. Do you connect with them? Do you understand them? Do you think you can formulate a personal relationship? That's important. Some people just don't jive together. So you have to understand that fit, but also speaking with existing franchise owners. Do you feel like you can connect with them? Do they seem similar to you? Because they're gonna be part of your back end team. You're gonna want to rely on them to answer questions. So really finding the right fit. But in order to find the right fit, you need to talk to those franchise organizations and really feel like you could be a fit in their organization.
Right. I mean, that's great advice too. Finding where you fit in the franchise and what lines up with your interests and things like that. I can see as being critical to the success of your franchise. So, Matt, last but not least, what piece of advice would you like to give veterans or transitioning service members interested in franchising?
I think it's all about considering your options. One of the great things about franchising is just how many business lines the industry spans. If you can think of it, there's a franchise for it. And I think a lot of people come in with the mindset that they already know exactly what they want to do. And I think kind of let your mind run wild for a little bit, let your imagination kind of take hold, take stock of all kinds of different franchises. We've always said you don't have to have a background in whatever you want to go franchise for. As long as you have an open mindset, you're willing to learn, and you're open to being taught and teaching others, you can do just about any franchise that you'd put your mind to. So don't think yourself into a corner thinking that, oh, I only have these hard skills, those are what I should be doing. You can definitely kind of think outside the box, take a look at other franchises, and you might end up doing something that you really enjoy that you didn't think that you would be the right fit for. So, definitely take stock of everything that's out there.
Yeah, that's great advice. You don't know what you don't know. So if you're open-minded, you might find something that you never knew you would be really good at. All right. Well, thank you for joining this panel today and sharing your breadth of knowledge with all the veterans and service members. I would say to the audience, make sure you visit their booths. They have virtual booths at the expo. And I'll just give each of you a couple seconds if you want to give the website and a way to contact you. Go ahead, Bobby. Do you have a way that a veteran or service member would contact you if they had more questions?
Yeah, you can go to our website. It's just growlercountry.com. There's a franchising section on there. We've got video. We've got a little bit more information. Fill out that form. We'll contact you back. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Those are the two probably best ways to get a hold of me. And we're eager to talk to veterans and figure out if we can help them out.
Great. Paul?
Yeah, it's Paul Huszar, Huszar. I think I'm one of the very few on LinkedIn. So easy to connect with me personally there. And then standing offer, always willing to use my network for the good of helping veterans. If you're interested in VetCor or VetCor franchising opportunities, it's vetcorservices.com. It's VETCOR services, or vetcorfranchising.com. And there's forms there you can fill out, or you can just get a hold of me and I'll connect you with our VP of franchise development. I tell people, and particularly when I'm trying to sell our franchising concept to other like insurance carriers or clients, I said, the key to franchising is training, standardizing, and replicating. Any organizations that have a great reputation for training, standardizing, and replicating? How about the U.S. Armed Forces? There are none better in the world ever. And so it's a great opportunity. Thanks, Veterans Florida, for letting us participate today.
Great. And Jenny, how would somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way would be friendnet.com. I am under the consultant page, so you can reach out to me directly. Or, if there's a consultant in your local market that you would rather work with, you can do that as well. My email address is jsutter@frannet.com. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as Jenny Sutter, franchise matchmaker. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy, again, to just educate in any way, provide any resources that I possibly have. And, I could, connect, like Paul said, it's all about connection. So if I can help anyone connect in the right place, then I certainly would. So thank you, Veterans Florida, for having me.
Great. Thank you for being here. All right, Matt, how would somebody get a hold of you?
Everything I talked about today is at vetfran.org. You can reach out to us there. We have a live chat tool. You can also email vetfran@franchise.org. And if you're looking for our sister organization, the IFA, that's just at franchise.org. So vetfran.org can be your jumping off point.
Great. And if you didn't catch those or you don't remember them, you can always find information about all these organizations at veteransflorida.org. And there's other resources you can find there as well. Thank you.